I never thought I'd be the kind of man to hire a private investigator to follow his own wife. But then again, I never thought I'd find credit card statements for accounts I didn't know existed, hidden in a shoebox behind our winter coats. The discovery happened on a Tuesday morning in March. Sarah had asked me to grab her coat from the closet before I left for my consulting meeting. As I reached for her navy blazer, my hand knocked over a small Nike shoebox that had been pushed far back on the shelf. When it hit the floor, dozens of papers scattered across our bedroom carpet like fallen leaves. I knelt down to collect them, expecting to find old photos or receipts. Instead, I was staring at credit card statements from Chase, American Express, and Discover, all in Sarah's name. All for accounts I'd never seen before. The most recent statement showed a balance of $47,000 on the Chase card alone. My hands trembled as I flipped through the papers. Cash advances totaling $15,000 in the past 3 months. Purchases at hotels I'd never heard of. Restaurant charges for expensive dinners on nights when Sarah claimed she was working late at the accounting firm. A charge for $2,800 at a jewelry store downtown. Not the necklace she'd been wearing lately, which she said was a gift from her sister. I sat on our bed, surrounded by evidence of a life I knew nothing about. 22 years of marriage, and I was looking at financial records that painted a picture of a woman I didn't recognize. The military had taught me to stay calm under pressure, to analyze intelligence before reacting. But this felt different. This was personal. Sarah found me there when she came upstairs to ask why I was taking so long. "Marcus, are you okay?" She stopped in the doorway, her face going pale when she saw the papers in my hands. "Are you okay?" I asked, holding up a statement showing a $3,400 charge at the Marriott downtown. "Because according to this, you spent quite a bit of money last weekend when you said you were at your mother's house helping her with taxes." She sat down heavily in the chair by our dresser. "I can explain." I'm listening. But her explanation made everything worse. She claimed the credit cards were for emergency expenses related to her mother's medical bills. When I asked why she hadn't discussed this with me, she said she didn't want to burden me with her family's problems. When I pointed out that several charges were at luxury restaurants and hotels, she said she needed to take breaks from the stress of caring for her mother. None of it made sense. Her mother lived in Phoenix, not downtown. Her mother had excellent insurance through my father-in-law's retirement plan. And most damning of all, I'd called her mother just last weekend, and she'd mentioned that Sarah hadn't visited in over 2 months. That night, after Sarah fell asleep, I took photos of every statement and receipt. The total debt across all 3 cards was $127,000. But as I studied the charges more carefully, I began to see patterns that made my stomach turn. Regular hotel charges, always on the same days of the week. Restaurant bills for exactly 2 people at expensive steakhouses. Charges at men's clothing stores. Suits, shirts, shoes, all in sizes that wouldn't fit me. A charge for $1,200 at a spa that offered couples massage packages. The evidence was telling a story I didn't want to believe, but my military training had taught me that intelligence doesn't lie. People do. I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting Sarah with accusations, I decided to treat this like a reconnaissance mission. I needed more intelligence before taking action. The next morning, I called Tom Rodriguez, a private investigator I'd worked with during my security consulting days. Tom had been a detective for 15 years before starting his own firm, and he specialized in financial fraud and infidelity cases. "Marcus, good to hear from you," Tom said when I reached him. "What can I do for you?" "I need your help with a situation. My wife has been hiding credit card debt, and I think there's more to the story." We met that afternoon at a coffee shop across town. I showed Tom the statements and explained what I'd discovered. He listened without judgment, taking notes in a small black notebook. "This pattern suggests a relationship," Tom said, pointing to the hotel charges. "Same hotel, same day of the week, consistent over 6 months. The restaurant charges tell the same story. Always for 2 people. Always at places that cater to business lunches or romantic dinners. What do you recommend?" "Let me do some background work first. I'll check these hotel records, restaurant receipts, see if I can identify patterns. I'll also run a comprehensive financial background check. See if there are other accounts you don't know about. This level of debt suggests she's been planning something for a while." Tom's words hit me like a physical blow. Planning something. Not just hiding debt, but actively planning. "How long will this take?" "Give me 2 weeks. Don't change your routine. Don't let her know you're suspicious. Act normal. Can you do that?" I nodded, though normal felt like a foreign concept now. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I went to work, came home, had dinner with Sarah, watched television, went to bed, all while knowing that my marriage was probably over. Sarah seemed nervous, checking her phone constantly, taking calls in other rooms. She claimed she was dealing with a difficult client at work. On a Thursday evening, Tom called. "We need to meet. I have information you need to see." We met at the same coffee shop. Tom slid a manila envelope across the table. "Your wife has been having an affair for 8 months, he said quietly. His name is David Chen. He's 38, divorced, works in commercial real estate. They meet every Tuesday and Thursday at the Marriott downtown. They've taken 3 weekend trips together: Chicago, Nashville, and Miami. She's been using the credit cards to fund their relationship." I opened the envelope. Photos of Sarah entering the hotel with a tall Asian man in an expensive suit. Photos of them at dinner, holding hands across a table. A photo of them kissing in the parking garage of her office building. "There's more," Tom continued. "She's opened a joint checking account with him. They've been depositing money from those cash advances, your money, into an account they're using to look at houses together. I found real estate listings they viewed, all in his name and hers." The room felt like it was spinning. They're buying a house? Planning to. There's also this. Tom handed me another document. "She's been forging your signature on loan applications. She used your credit score and income information to qualify for additional credit lines. That's fraud, Marcus. Serious fraud." I stared at the loan documents. My signature, but not written by my hand. My social security number, my employment information, my bank account numbers, all used without my knowledge. "The total debt in your name is actually $284,000, Tom said. She's been very systematic about this. The credit cards you found were just the beginning. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Nearly $300,000 in debt I didn't know about, used to fund my wife's affair and help her start a new life with another man. What are my options? Legally, you have several. The forgery is criminal fraud. The use of your credit and income information without consent is identity theft. The debt she's accumulated using your information can be disputed, but you'll need to act fast. That night, I called my attorney, Janet Morrison. I'd used her services when I started my consulting business, and I trusted her judgment. Marcus, you need to document everything immediately, Janet said after I explained the situation. We need to file police reports for the fraud, contact the credit bureaus to dispute the unauthorized accounts, and begin divorce proceedings before she can hide more assets. What about the money she's already taken? We'll pursue full recovery plus damages. If she's used forged signatures and committed identity theft, she's facing serious criminal charges. That gives us significant leverage in the divorce proceedings. The next morning, I took a personal day from work. I spent the day at the police station filing fraud reports, at the bank reviewing my accounts, and at Janet's office beginning the divorce paperwork. By that evening, I had a plan. I waited until Sarah came home from work, or wherever she'd actually been. She seemed unusually cheerful, humming as she prepared dinner. "Sarah, we need to talk." She looked up from the stove, and I saw the exact moment when she recognized the tone in my voice. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the kitchen table where I'd laid out printed copies of everything: the credit card statements, the photos, the forged loan documents, the real estate listings. She sat down slowly, her face going white as she saw the evidence spread across our table. "I know about David," I said simply. "I know about the hotels, the restaurants, the house you're planning to buy together. I know about the $284,000 in debt you've accumulated in my name, using forged signatures." Sarah stared at the photos of herself and David. Her hands were shaking. "Marcus, I can explain." "No." I kept my voice calm and professional. "You can explain to the police when they arrest you for fraud and identity theft. You can explain to the divorce court when we divide assets. What you can't do is explain this to me, because I'm done listening." I stood up and walked to the counter, where I'd prepared a packet of documents. "These are copies of the police reports I filed today. You're being charged with identity theft, forgery, and financial fraud. This is a restraining order, preventing you from accessing our joint accounts. This is notice that I'm filing for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct." Sarah was crying now, but I felt nothing. The woman sitting at my kitchen table wasn't the person I'd married. She was a stranger who had systematically stolen my identity, my money, and my trust. "You have 48 hours to find somewhere else to live," I continued. "After that, you'll be trespassing. My attorney will contact you about the divorce proceedings." "Marcus, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this." "You didn't make mistakes, Sarah. You committed crimes. For 8 months, you've been living a double life, stealing from me to fund an affair. You've been planning to leave me while building a future with another man using my money." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "The really stupid part? If you'd just asked for a divorce, I would have been fair about the division of assets. I would have made sure you were financially secure. Instead, You chose to steal from me and commit fraud. Now, you'll face the consequences. The legal process moved quickly. Within a week, the police had enough evidence to arrest Sarah for identity theft and fraud. David Chen, it turned out, knew nothing about the forged documents. He thought Sarah had her own money. When he learned the truth, he wanted nothing to do with her. The credit card companies and banks were surprisingly cooperative once they saw the police reports and evidence of forgery. Most of the fraudulent debt was removed from my credit report within 30 days. Sarah's arrest made the local news. Her accounting firm fired her immediately. They couldn't have an employee facing fraud charges. The real estate license she'd been working toward was denied due to her criminal record. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Sarah received nothing from our joint assets. Everything went to paying off the legitimate debts and covering my legal fees. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay $127,000 in restitution for the money she'd actually spent. David Chen sent me a letter of apology. He'd been deceived too, he said. He thought he was dating a successful accountant with her own money, not a woman who was stealing from her husband to impress him. Today, I'm in a better place than I ever imagined possible. The insurance settlement from the fraud case gave me enough money to expand my consulting business. I've met someone new, a woman who values honesty as much as I do. But the most satisfying part wasn't the money or the legal victory. It was watching Sarah realize that her carefully planned scheme had backfired completely. She'd thought she was smart enough to steal from me while building a new life. Instead, she lost everything. Her marriage, her job, her freedom, her future with David, and her reputation. She'd underestimated the man she'd married. Military training teaches you that the best battles are won with intelligence, patience, and superior strategy. Sarah had declared war on my finances and my trust. But she'd forgotten that I knew how to fight back. Justice isn't always immediate, but it's always inevitable. Sarah learned that the hard way.